Attorney Jamon Hicks with the Cochran firm in Los Angeles. Thank you once again for being with RealUrbanNews.com.
Thank you so much, Michael, for having me back on your show, and I look forward to speaking with you about the Reginald Doucet case.
In the Reginald Doucet case, the Cochran firm is filing a suit against the city of Los Angeles on behalf of Mr. Doucet's surviving heir. Tell us about this lawsuit, but more importantly, tell us about the actions that led up to the lawsuit.
Okay. First, I'll explain that we're filing a lawsuit in federal court as opposed to state court. And essentially what we're filing are two causes of action. The first cause of action being a civil rights violation of Mr. Doucet at the hands of the city of Los Angeles, specifically the Los Angeles police officers whose names we don't know right now, as well as a wrongful death cause of action, again stemming from the tragic fatal shooting of Mr. Doucet on January 14th, 2011.
We do know on the morning of January 14th, Mr. Doucet was completely naked, unarmed, and involved in a fight with the police.
Well, let me kind of give you a little bit of the background of what happened, or what our investigation has led us to understand so far, is that Mr. Doucet had taken a cab from the W Hotel in Hollywood home to his residence in Playa Vista, specifically one of those new areas, a very nice area off of Crescent Heights. When he got home, he didn't have enough money for the cab fare, which started a dispute between him and the cab driver, because he wanted to go inside of his home to get some money. The cab driver didn't want to allow him to go inside, so an argument ensues. It's very early morning, around 2:20 when he's dropped off. It's then, based on our investigation, our belief that Mr. Doucet stripped naked, possibly as collateral, to let, in the midst of this argument, to let the cab driver know, I'm not going anywhere, you can have my stuff. And he was trying to get inside of his home when the police were called. And we believe there may have been two calls. We know at least one. We believe the cab driver may have called about a potential petty theft. We also know that a neighbor or a security guard, we're unsure of which, may have also made a call disturbing the peace. Both are very, very small criminal matters, at most misdemeanors. And then at some point the police did respond to the scene. Now, from what we have gathered, when they arrived at the scene, Mr. Doucet was in basketball shorts only, but at some point had taken those basketball shorts off, and he's now completely naked and running around. We also have reason to believe that the officers that arrived at the scene were under the impression, based on information they had gathered beforehand, that Mr. Doucet was either suffering from some sort of mental illness, or that Mr. Doucet was under the influence of some kind of drug. And from that standpoint, we feel that there were tactical decisions made that led to this unfortunate, tragic death.
This shooting and death received a lot of media attention. It was the first part of the year. How are you all going to combat that attention garnered?
Well, the initial thing that came out was that this guy had to be on some sort of, probably under the influence of alcohol. And one of the things that we first heard a lot in the media was that he was at a club known as Dre's inside the W Hotel. We have found that that information is false, that he was not inside a club, that he was actually staying at the W Hotel. I've spoken to a witness at the W that will confirm that he was staying at the W Hotel and was not at a club. Also, based on the clothing that he was wearing, it's unlikely he was in a club, because he had on basketball shorts, sweats, and a sweatshirt. So that's not club attire. So the thing that we are waiting to explain to the community is that this was not a man that was abusing drugs to the extent that we think it would cause the actions of him taking off his clothes. Now, I have a lot of experience with these types of cases. I will admit that I was concerned when I initially heard the media's version, the Los Angeles Police Department's version, where they were stating that they had a naked man who was running around sweating. Now, again, in my experience, that can be because of some sort of mental disorder, mental disability, or illness. At the same time, it also can be caused by PCP consumption or cocaine. So there was an initial concern. However, our investigation has led us to believe that there was no PCP at all involved. There was no cocaine at all involved. So it's more likely that he was suffering from some sort of mental illness.
So by you saying that there was no PCP involved and no cocaine involved, this was on the toxicology report?
Correct. There has been an autopsy, obviously that's done in every officer involved shooting. The coroner of Los Angeles performed an autopsy. They have not officially released the records to the public, but from what I have reviewed, I can let you know that we have not seen anything thus far that would suggest that Mr. Doucet had any PCP or any cocaine in his system.
You're saying this is a tactical suit against the city of Los Angeles and the LAPD. Does the Cochran firm believe the LAPD acted improperly that morning because Mr. Doucet was unclothed and clearly had no weapon?
Well, there's a few things I think LAPD has to take into consideration and failed to. Let's first talk about what is the issue at hand. What is the potential crime? How serious of a crime are we talking about when the police respond? Okay, it's one thing if the police are responding to a situation where there has been violence, domestic violence, a battery, child abuse. When you arrive onto a scene and you have information, as limited as it is, that you may have a violent situation, no doubt your senses are heightened. Okay, in this situation, at most, what do we have is a subject who is naked. They say running around and jumping on cars. That has not been confirmed as far as the jumping on cars, but even still, if you accept their facts, you have an individual, no suggestion of there being a robbery. Okay, you have at most that this is a situation where there is a misdemeanor involved, disturbing the peace, petty theft, that he failed to pay his taxi. So when the police come onto the scene, number one, their level of concern should be diminished until they are presented with facts that will cause them to be concerned. Another thing, when they arrive on the scene, we have information to believe that a witness told them, I believe that this subject may be suffering from a mental illness. So not only do they have the information that the crime at stake is not that serious, but that also that this person may be suffering from a mental illness. Now, based on their background, their training and experience, they should have then addressed this situation as a person who may be mentally ill, who is not a threat to their safety or the safety of anyone else.
From your knowledge, to your knowledge, do you all know if Mr. Doucet suffered mental illness in the past?
I will tell you this. We don't have any information to suggest that he has been diagnosed with any mental illness. We don't have any prior information to suggest that either. I do have some information of some concerns about actions that were taking place days before the shooting that should serve as a warning sign. And unfortunately, he didn't get the help that he possibly needed because of this unfortunate shooting.
Why are you all filing this case in a federal court?
There's a few reasons that I can't disclose strategically why. But one of the things why I believe that this is a federal case as opposed to a state case is because I believe his federal civil rights were violated, Mr. Doucet's. I believe that the officers didn't have any intent to come onto the scene and to take the life of Mr. Doucet. I believe that. However, I believe that whether it's a result of inadequate training by the Los Angeles Police Department or that the officers violated their training, either or, that this is a situation where Mr. Doucet's rights were violated because he was not treated the way he should have been treated under the circumstances, the totality of the circumstances, and that we have here a daughter who will never have the opportunity to see her father, family who has lost a son, they've lost a brother, they've lost an uncle. And I think that we owe that family, number one, we owe Mr. Cochran's legacy to continue to investigate these types of cases. And the most important thing is if there is some sort of training that should have been done, that we can file a lawsuit to prevent this from happening in the future and to effect change.
What does this lawsuit hope to accomplish at the end of the day?
The goal obviously is to take a expansive look at how Los Angeles Police Department specifically treat individuals that they believe may be either suffering from a mental illness or under some sort of stimulant, whether it be a drug or some other kind of medication. The ultimate goal is to sit down and see if we can come up with some further policy, some better training to prevent this type of situation from happening again. Obviously, this lawsuit will seek some sort of compensation for his heir, because the way our justice system is built, that's the only thing we can do. We cannot bring Mr. Doucet back to his family. What we can try to do as best as possible is to place his daughter in a position that she would have been had the shooting never occurred. Financially is the only way, because we cannot bring her that love, that guidance, that support emotionally that she would have had if her father was not tragically killed.
Once again, the Cochran firm is filing a wrongful death and civil rights suit on behalf of the heir of Reginald Doucet Jr.,
Correct.
who was killed in a melee with LAPD on January 14th, 2011.
Correct.
Thank you for being with RealOverNews.com.
Thank you again so much, Michael, for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about this tragic case.